Before the incident, there was nothing unusual about him. Assigned to archival sector Stacks 404 under short notice, he replaced Wallace Kinney, a technician who vanished mid-shift and whose departure was dismissed as an administrative oversight. His name never appeared in the morning logs again, but his locker remained sealed with a taped warning, "Do not open, MG clearance pending." Stacks 404 was never listed on official facility maps. Buried 4 floors beneath the surface, it existed only through override access. The elevator refused to acknowledge the floor. Its display alternated between a blank panel and the number 404, flickering as if the system was conflicted about admitting the location existed at all. From the start, the place rejected him. No one told him the silence would hurt. By B3, ambient noise, fluorescence, ventilation, even distant footsteps still held some trace of human activity. But on B4, silence devoured sound. The kind that pressures the eardrums and convinces you something waits in it. On his first descent, the elevator lights hesitated. When they finally came on, it wasn't the usual smooth transition of motion sensors. It was delayed, like the system had to consider whether to illuminate the hallway. This delay would repeat every day, as if some threshold had to be crossed before the facility allowed light. The corridor was wrong. Documentation stated 3 rooms, Alpha, Delta, and Echo, but he counted 5. One door had no label, only a metal plate scarred with deep etching, X. He avoided it instinctively. His early tasks involved converting physical records. Most were ancient, handwritten, or damaged beyond clarity. He was told to digitize what could be saved and incinerate anything that exhibited rot, watermarks, or color degradation. He followed protocol. By day 4, anomalies began. He noticed the thermos he carried produced no reflection. The screen of a powered-down monitor showed nothing, not his silhouette, not the room behind him. Initially, he blamed the light angle or a faulty bulb. But on day 6, the elevator's metal walls stopped reflecting him entirely. He submitted a Level 2 anomaly report. No reply ever came. The ticket was silently closed by an unknown user. Later that day, while leaving subchamber Delta, he noticed his shadow delay. It didn't track him in real time. Movements he made were echoed half a second later. At first subtle, it soon became obvious. He'd lift his hand, and only afterward would his shadow mimic the motion. The lag felt intentional, like something was watching and repeating rather than responding. He recorded a short video using his phone. The file corrupted. What remained was 5 seconds of static, followed by a freeze frame of the corridor, devoid of him or his shadow. Still, the light in the frame blinked. He ran the pattern through a Morse decoder out of curiosity. It said, "That's not yours." He didn't return the next day, but the day after that, he found a flash drive on his workstation. No sender, no system log. It contained a single directory: Protocol Obsidian, Live Sync, Reflex Echo. Inside were 37 still images, surveillance captures, all from Stacks 404. All showed him, or rather, someone in his position. The problem was the reflections. Each one showed a slightly different figure. Not different enough to deny it was him, but enough to suggest that something else was watching, copying, imperfectly. In every image, the subject's shadow was missing. At 3:33 a.m. that night, his fire alarm went off. There had been no fire, no battery, no circuit power. He disconnected the device months ago. As he investigated, he caught his reflection in the hallway mirror. For the first time in days, it appeared, but it moved longer than he did. Its mouth continued speaking long after his had closed. A single word escaped before the mirror cracked, outward, from the inside. Return. He took immediate leave, citing dissociative symptoms and environmental stress. His request was approved for 48 hours. Upon return, Kinney's locker had been opened. Inside, one item, a reel-to-reel magnetic tape labeled Echo Pattern D, play only in Stack 404, do not duplicate. He should have destroyed it. Instead, he brought it to the vault's listening station and pressed play. The listening terminal in Stacks 404 was an outdated device, analog to the core.
It wasn't part of the central system and required manual input. Real threading, physical amplification, no logs. That's why he used it. The moment the reel engaged, the lights and subchamber echo dimmed to 60%. Not flickered, dimmed, evenly, like an environmental preset had been activated in response. The audio began with nothing but static, the kind that feels too structured, too organized to be natural.
Beneath it, a low thrum pulsed in intervals. 3 seconds on, 3 seconds off. A rhythm that matched no equipment within the facility. He adjusted the volume slowly. At minute 4, the static shifted. Something layered underneath began surfacing. Voices, but not spoken, not human, not in any language. They didn't sound recorded. They sounded present. The term he would use later in his private log was rehearsed echo, like the machine was looping phrases that hadn't been spoken yet. At 04:44 on the timestamp, the door to echo clicked open. No one was authorized to enter. No alerts were triggered. But the door opened anyway, just a few inches, just enough. And from that sliver of hallway, a faint shimmer reflected against the control panel, like light hitting a mirror that wasn't there. He turned to look. Nothing. The door was still ajar, no one beyond it, but the shimmer remained. He turned back to the tape. At 07:10, the voices merged into a singular cadence.
A single voice, no longer layered, spoke clearly in English, matching his cadence and tone perfectly. Word for word, it began reciting a line from his own field notes, the exact phrase he had written 36 hours earlier. My reflection does not act as a mirror. It acts like an observer. He hadn't uploaded that log to any system. It was handwritten, stored in a locked drawer in his office. He stopped the reel. The voice didn't. It continued for 11 seconds before fading back into static. He removed the reel, resealed the canister, and locked it in the vault. Then he checked the surveillance logs. There were none. No footage, no access entries, no ambient audio records. It was as if the entire session had been excluded from the system. But on his way out, as he passed the auxiliary monitor, powered down and dust-covered, he saw something. Not himself. Not exactly.
The figure standing in the reflection was in his position, facing him, but slightly angled, just wrong enough to register as foreign. It had no shadow. Its posture mirrored his delay, lagging a half-second behind, but its eyes moved ahead of him, following, reacting, anticipating. He closed his eyes, counted to 5, opened them. The screen was blank. When he reached the elevator, the control panel had changed. Instead of the usual 4 buttons, there was a 5th, 5. It wasn't possible. The elevator shaft ended at B4. Blueprints confirmed it. He pressed it. Nothing happened. He pressed the override key. The button lit up. The doors shut and began descending. The screen above him displayed a single character, X. No floor number, just the scratched symbol from the door he had ignored days earlier. As the elevator moved, he noticed something deeply wrong. The lights inside were reflecting the room, but he wasn't in the reflection.
The elevator showed the floor, the walls, the buttons, but where he stood, there was only shifting static, like footage badly synced to reality. The elevator didn't slow, it stopped abruptly, jarring enough that he gripped the rail. The doors didn't open, not entirely. A crack, barely enough to see through. But behind the gap, there was light. Not artificial, not electrical. It flickered like firelight filtered through glass. Warm, pulsing. Wrong. He leaned toward the gap, and that's when the panel behind him lit up again. The screen didn't display 404. It showed a phrase, Obsidian link active, echo confirmed. And then the power cut. Not just in the elevator, across the entire floor. Emergency lights activated, faint red glow, the kind you only see in lockdown conditions. But there was no alarm, no announcement, only silence. He forced the elevator doors open manually. It shouldn't have worked. The internal pressure lock requires 2 authorized users to disengage. But it slid open like it had been waiting for him. What he saw beyond it cannot be fully described. Not by language, not by logic. The hallway was wrong, curved like a lens. Walls bent inward and then outward, impossibly. The floor was smooth, mirror-like, but rippling, like water trapped beneath glass. No doors, no signage, only a long corridor that led to a singular structure at the far end, a full-length mirror, standing freely, unsupported, facing him, waiting. He took 1 step forward, then another. His footsteps made no sound, and as he approached, he realized the mirror wasn't reflecting him. It was showing what he had done yesterday, the clothes he wore yesterday, the way he walked yesterday. And the moment he reached the halfway mark, the reflection stopped following the past and started acting independently. It raised its hand before he did, smiled before he even reacted, tilted its head in ways he hadn't. Behind the mirrored version of himself, shadows began to fade.
Multiple, thin, human-like, but exaggerated. Then they vanished, and with them, so did his own. He never made it back to the main floor, not physically. The elevator was found idle on B2 the following morning. Doors open, no occupant. But the internal log showed a descent far beyond structural limits. An impossible loop. Floor B4, then X, then 7, then X again, then nothing. The technician's badge continued to ping location beacons inside Stacks 404 for 11 consecutive hours before vanishing entirely from the network. His body was never recovered, but the system didn't forget him. 48 hours after his disappearance, a new entry appeared in the internal database. File 404/Obsidian Reflex. No user had uploaded it. No credentials were logged. Inside the file, full transcriptions of his audio notes, verbatim, most of which had never been recorded or digitized. Each line was time-stamped with dates and hours he hadn't reached yet. Future entries. Future thoughts.
At first, they mirrored expected outcomes: panic, confusion, speculation. But as the file grew, the content shifted. The tone was no longer his. It became colder, descriptive, observational. The logs stopped using I and replaced it with he, then the subject, then only silence between entries, interrupted by static blocks of Morse. It sees through him. Mirror is one way. Shadow trade complete. A systems analyst attempted to delete the file. The console froze. 3 other files vanished instead. 2 were unrelated requisition forms. The third was an employee record, Wallace Kinney. His profile was wiped from the archive. No recovery was possible. 20 minutes later, the analyst reported his own shadow lagging behind during routine biometric check-in. He was placed on leave. That same night, during an unrelated audit, the mirror in Observation Room 4B cracked cleanly across the center. Surveillance footage showed no cause. But in the brief moment before the camera looped, 2 frames of visual distortion were caught. Frame 1, the analyst looking into the mirror. Frame 2, his reflection looking into the camera. A request was made to close Stacks 404 indefinitely. It was denied. Reclassification protocol activated instead. Obsidian Reflex was labeled an ambient geometry anomaly, type E, non-localized behavioral contagion. Minimal threat level, observation only, no containment, no purge. 1 week later, File 404 began updating itself again. The timestamps this time were current. The entries described real-time events: lights turning off, reflections blinking, elevator calls made at 3:33 a.m. All of it is accurate, but there was no operator, no author, just the file. Then came the last entry. Whoever opens this, you're already in the reflection. The file is still active. It updates at random intervals, always after someone attempts to access a mirror in Sector B.
The IT team installed filters to block its spread, but that didn't stop the reflections. Several terminals now show glimpses of the corridor that doesn't exist. Employees report seeing a man who looks like the technician, but not exactly, walking past glass panels in hallways he couldn't be in. One even reported hearing his own voice say, "Return," from inside a powered-down screen. Whether the subject was absorbed, duplicated, or exchanged is undetermined. But one thing is clear. The entity that observed him is no longer bound to mirrors. It moved through the file. It's watching it from here now. If you know someone who worked there too, don't tell them about this video. Just watch their behavior. If they start repeating times or locking drawer 267 again and again, you'll know.